Just trying to see if it's going to go through all right. Oh, looks like I might be doing something. Great. I think we've done it. Hooray. Good. It's not making a noise. That's wonderful. So
I can hear you. I can hear you well.
That's fantastic. That's really good. How are you doing? Is it
Fine.
snowing where you are?
No, but it's
Oh,
really windy in Norway, and I think the wind's going to come to Denmark soon. So
oh gosh, all right.
it is windy, but it's getting. We can feel that it's getting lighter.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, nice.
Yeah, we can
Lovely.
feel that already. That it's not so dark.
Oh, well, that's very nice. That's good. You're getting out of winter. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember when I lived in London, it's not as far north as Denmark. You know, I remember the long winters. One of the pleasures of coming to Israel, you don't have those long winters anymore.
No, and it's slightly warm. I don't know. Svart's not so warm either, but
Well, yeah,
it's
but
slightly warmer.
yeah, it's not the same. It's really not the
No,
same.
it's not the same.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let me just get the prayer. Where's the prayer? Here's the prayer. Fantastic. And now I can share my screen. And we're off. Okay, wonderful. Hi, Tzipi. Nice to see you. ריבון עולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן והסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשתחוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך, עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומה חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו, חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהיו רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, תקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך קרח ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית את דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבל נכשל בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיניי והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, ילרות צוני מפיו, וגאון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. Can you
Amen.
Absolutely. So we want to dedicate all our learning for the safety and well-being of the soldiers, wherever they are, in whatever front they are, and that the angels should do the fighting, Bezrat Hashem. And also give us hope, help, sustenance to the hostages and bring them out from darkness into light. And we pray also for Shalom for all the wounded. Okay, so that's what we really, really want to dedicate our learning for. Now then, we're going to learn some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful pieces from Rabbi Ashlag here. I can share that. I think you should be able to see that all right. Okay.
I would like to dedicate my learning to Tal Ben Alona, who is a wounded soldier.
Okay, before Shalema. Tal Ben Alona. Okay. Let's see if I can just zoom that in a bit more easy to read. There you go. This is an article. Today we're going to be learning articles from Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, which I found them absolutely fascinating. Okay. There's a very interesting sentence prior to the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, where God tells Moses, when he's telling the people to get ready, he says, Ko Tomar lebeit Yaakov, thus you shall say to Beit Yaakov, v'tagid libnei Israel, and tell to the children of Israel. And all the Mefarshim tell us that Beit Yaakov refers to the women, and Bnei Israel refers to the men. And this article is called Matai Hagvarim Mukdamim Lenashim, uMatai Hanashim Mukdamot Legvarim. When do the men come before the women, and when do the women take precedence over the men? Okay, very nice. Let's find out, why was it that the Torah was told to be given to the women first? Now, there's lots of explanations in the Midrash, okay, and one of the other articles we'll look at one of them, okay, but Rabbi Ashlag looks at it from a very interesting perspective, and that is our perspective of our inner work. And he writes like this: B'midrash Shemot Rabbah, Ko Tomar LeBeit Yaakov, that's what she'll say to Beit Yaakov, Elu Hanashim, to the women, say to the women, Emor lahem Rashei Hadvarim, tell them the main headlines, the main issues. V'tagid libnei Israel, and tell to the children of Israel, Elu ha'anashim, these are the men. Emor lahem diktokei dvarim, tell them precise details of the matters, Shem yocholim lishmoa, which are able to hear. V'lama lenashim tchila, why for the women first? Shehain mzurazot b'mitzvot, because they are more quick to do the mitzvot. They want to do the mitzvot. Here comes Rochelle. They want to do the mitzvot. Dvar acher, another reason, shein manhigot et b'neihem leTalmud Torah, because they're the ones who take their kids to the Talmud Torah, to learn Torah. Amar Rabbi Tachlifa Domin Kisarin, Rabbi Tachlifa, I think he must have been from Caesarea, said, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy Blessed One said, Kshabarati et olam lo tziviti el al Adam harishon. When I created the world, I didn't command Adam and Eve, I just commanded Adam, right, and don't eat from the tree. But, of course, it was Eve, achar kach nitztavet Chava. Afterwards, Eve was kind of commanded through Adam, but not directly. Va'avra v'kukalat ha'olam. And she transgressed, and the world was spoiled. All right? It's just a midrash, okay? We'll find out what it means in a minute. Achshav im eini korei lenashim tchila. Now, if I don't call to the women first, hen mevatlot et haTorah, they would cancel out the Torah. Lekach ne'emar, ko tomar leBeit Yaakov. That's why it says, first say to Beit Yaakov. Rabbi Yochanan amar, to the women. Rabbi Yochanan amar, ko tomar leBeit Yaakov, elu Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yochanan says, say to Beit Yaakov, this is the Sanhedrin. Shne'emar Beit Yaakov lechu v'nelcha ba'orashim. The house of Jacob, let's go and walk in the light of God. Okay, now there's lots of questions about all this, all right? I don't think that they mean it all literally, okay? We're going to find out what this means today. This is what we're going to concentrate on today. ויש לשאול את הנ"ל, ויש להסביר את הנ"ל על דרך העבודה. So we're going to explain everything we've said above by looking at what it means in our inner work. זה ידוע שאדם כלול מבחינת מקבל, הנקראת בחינת אישה. Now, Rabbi Ashlag takes us into a totally different province. He says, it's known that the human being is made up of the aspect of receiving. Now, the aspect of receiving is the feminine aspect, okay? ובחינת השפעה שנקרא איש. And the aspect of giving is the masculine aspect. Okay? Why is the aspect of the feminine receiving? Why is that called the woman, the female aspect? And why is it aspect of man giving? If you just think about biology, okay, we can just see that in biology, that the male gives the seed to the female. Okay? והנה, אדם הראשון, כשנברא, סדר בריאתו היה מלמעלה למטה. When Adam Rishon was created, the order of his creation was that he was created from above to below. Now, in the language of Kabbalah, okay, we're learning the language today. Feminine means receiving, masculine means giving, above means pure, below means not so pure. What's pure? Pure is giving. What is not so pure, more opaque, more dense? That is receiving. Why is giving considered pure and receiving considered dense? And the reason is because the Creator himself is only giving. He doesn't receive because what's he going to receive, all right? He doesn't lack anything. He's complete. So basically, the characteristic of giving belongs to the Creator, and the characteristic of receiving belongs to the created. All right, in which case we can say that giving is pure and receiving is more opaque. So if we look at this sentence that he's told us, he says, when Adam, the first human being, was created, he was created from above to below. That is, from the pure to the impure. In other words, first of all, he was created with only the aspect of giving. And that was the aspect that he was in his initial creation in the Garden of Eden. Only subsequently, when he ate from the tree of knowledge, did he receive the aspect of receiving. Okay? And don't imagine it was a mistake. He was meant to eat from the tree of knowledge. God organized it that way. Okay? So he was actually created from the pure to the impure, from giving to receiving. Okay? וכפי המבואר בזוהר הקדוש, and as is explained in the Holy Zohar, אדם הראשון לא הווה לימי עולמה כלום. Adam Rishon did not have anything of this world at all. What does that mean? היינו שמטעם החטא לא היה הרצון לקבל בשלמות. Before he ate from the tree of knowledge, his will to receive was not complete. Okay? And we're going to find out a little bit more what this means. Hayot sheyesh l'adam shlosha nefashot. Now, the Holy Ari tells us that the human being has 3 levels of soul. K'mavua, as is explained, b'divrei ha'ari HaKadosh, in the words of the Holy Ari. Nefesh d'kedusha shuhi kli kodesh. We've got the soul of holiness, which is the vessel for receiving the light which is in holiness, a vessel of holiness. Bet, nefesh miklipat noga, she mechza al mechza. This is a sort of an in-between area, okay? It's called klipat noga, where we've got choice. Are we going to tilt ourselves and the world into holiness, or God forbid, into the other side? That's the area of choice. Okay, it's like the highest level of the klipot, and that highest level of klipot, we actually have choice. Okay, and the third aspect of the soul is nefesh mishlosha klipot atmeot. Okay, the soul, an aspect of the soul which is connected with the lower three klipot meot, which is not usually in our power to do much about. Okay, our area of choice is the middle one, klipat noga. לעניין מחצה על מחצה, היינו שאם עושה איזה מצווה, אז הנפש השני מתחבאת לקדושה. So the in-between one, okay, is where we've got choice, is if we do a mitzvah, then the second level of soul, the klipat noga, joins with holiness. But if God forbid he does a sin, then he joins with the lowest aspect, which is the klipot. Now, Adam HaRishon nolad mahul. Now, Adam HaRishon was born circumcised. Okay, that's according to the Talmud. What does that mean? He didn't have the connection with the lower three, with the lower klipot, with the last part of that lowest soul, which is connected with the unclean klipot. It was through the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge, it's like he pulled his foreskin back onto himself. What does that mean? It means that he pulled the towards himself the klipot of the will to receive for himself alone, which in the language of Kabbalah is also called the Orla, okay, which is the will to receive for oneself alone, which is completely cut off from holiness. And that's what he kind of gained, unfortunately, when he ate from the tree of knowledge. All right. And when I say unfortunately, it feels unfortunate. The reality is, in fact, it's part of our job, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the wherewithal to correct it. Okay. We as human beings, we actually need to have the evil side within us so that we can bring it into holiness. We do have a role to play in this, all right? So the reality is that when Adam HaRishon ate from the tree of knowledge, he brought the human being lower, but in fact it was necessary so that we would be able to correct that part of reality. Okay. All right. So Rabbi Gottlieb sums this all up, and he says here, now Rabbi Gottlieb, Rabbi Ashlag, is bringing here a proof that the order of creation of the first human being was from the pure to the impure, from the giving to the receiving. First of all, he only had vessels of giving, and by the sin of the Eitz Hadat, he brought to himself vessels of receiving. So we actually have, okay, that, if you like, started from the male side and then got the female side. Now, there's something in the chat which says, does the Torah say Adam was born? No, I meant to say he was created. I'm sorry, I might have said born by accident. He was created. I apologize, Rachel, you're quite right. Yeah, Rachel pointed out that Adam was created, not born. Sorry, that was me. Okay, not the Torah. That was me getting it wrong. All right. לכן, כשנברא העולם, נצטווה אדם הראשון תחילה, שלא לאכול מעץ הדעת, מטעם שהסדר הוא מהזך אל האב. Therefore, when the world was created, Adam HaRishon was commanded first not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Mitam shaseder hu me'azach el ha'av, because the original organization was from the pure to the impure. And in fact, if we look at the way the souls incarnate into the world, they come from the Ein Sof go down through the different levels of consciousness until they arrive in the human being. All right. And the order of devolution, if you like, from the Ein Sof to this world is from the pure to the impure, from the perfect to the imperfect. So the Ein Sof is perfect, and the souls go down stage by stage by stage by stage, going from the perfect to the imperfect. And that's called this organization from above to below. All right? So mitam shaseder u'me'azach el ha'av, from the giving to the receiving. Now then, ma she'en ken b'matan Torah shekava hayta behem ola. Now, when we come to Matan Torah, we've already got a situation where people have the will to receive from themselves alone. Okay, they're already created, they've already done plenty sins. Okay, all right. We know that before Matan Torah, there was all sorts of, there was Pharaoh, there was Amalek, there was all sorts of stuff. There was, before that, we had Noah and the flood. Okay, so following Adam eating from the tree of knowledge, the receiving had come into the world, the egoism had come into the world, the evil had come into the world, and people had idol worship. They had all this stuff, all right? So we've already got, and he puts it in one word, the orla, all right? The will to receive for oneself alone. She b'china zuhama. This is the, what he calls the pollution. Hanimshechet mibchinat chivia, which comes from the snake, okay, the advice of the snake, which got into the descendants of human beings. So now we need to do our tikkun from below to above. We have to begin where we are. You can't begin in some fantasy where we'd like to be. We have to begin where we are. And where we are is in the aspect of receiving, okay? Below. So we have to go now from the opposite direction. Milmata lamala, from below to above. Hainu meha'av el hazach, from receiving to giving, from opaqueness and denseness to purity, from the imperfect to the perfect. In fact, we climb up the same ladder of descent that the souls came down, we ascend back up through it. Now, the time when we're just receiving is, we call it the time of immaturity. Okay, we all start off that way. We all start off by first developing the ego, by first living with our egoism, okay, our selfish love. That's how we all have to begin. That's called immaturity. Shu bechina nukva. This is the feminine side. Yesh li kal ratzon lekabel. There is governance to the will to receive. אז צריכים לומר שעיקר קבלת התורה מצוות היא בחינת אמירה שהיא רכה. And therefore we need to say that the most important aspect of the receiving of the Torah and the mitzvot is the aspect of saying to the women, okay? It's the aspect of saying to the women, which is the aspect of saying, but of course it doesn't mean the women here. It means saying, which is the aspect of giving unconditional, sorry, I apologize. The aspect of receiving, because our nature is receiving, we actually have to learn, first of all, how to deal with our receiving nature. Only subsequently, we will be able to deal with our giving nature. Okay? Now, Rabbi Gottlieb has written a lovely explanation here, which I think is really worth reading. Okay, so let's have a look at what he says. First of all, before we go on, does anybody want to ask me anything? You can call out or put it in the chat, whatever you want to do.
So Yedida,
Yeah,
before the sin in the Garden of Eden,
yeah,
when the soul descended into Adam, it
yes,
didn't go down all the way through all the paces that levels that the soul goes through now,
that's true. Yeah.
right? So supposedly it did not reach the desire to receive for the self alone.
When it was in the Garden of Eden, before Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, that's right. He did not have the wills to receive for himself alone. That's right.
So
That's quite
why
true.
did Adam and Eve eat from the tree? What was their motivation? They had no desire to receive for themselves.
That's absolutely true, what you're saying. There's a fascinating article by Rabbi Ashlag, who describes what happened in the Garden of Eden as if he was this fly on the wall there. It's just unbelievable article. It's called The Introduction to the Panim Me'irot U'Masbirot. Actually, I translated it once into English. So I can send it to you if you like.
Oh, I'd
And
love it.
oh my gosh, it's amazing. But I'm just to tell everybody, the juicy bits, what actually happened was that Eve had Bina Yetera, greater understanding than Adam. Okay, the sages say she had Bina Yetera. She understood something about the tree of knowledge, which Adam had not understood. And she understood that it was not possible for God to create anything in his world which ultimately was evil. Okay, she understood that. And yet she had gone close enough to feel the death in the tree. Okay, she had actually been close enough, and she could sense the death, the disconnection from God in the tree. And that's why she says we're not allowed to touch it. It wasn't because they were commanded not to touch it. It was because she'd actually experienced, by simply going close by, she could experience the death in the tree. And what she understood from the snake was if they would eat from the tree of knowledge, then their eyes would be opened and they would be like God. That was not a lie. She understood from that they were meant to eat from the tree of knowledge, but to eat from it only for the sake of giving, not for the sake of receiving. They had to take from the tree of knowledge and intend it only for the sake of giving, by which place they would actually correct the tree and bring the whole thing into holiness. And the moment she thought that, she saw that the tree was the most beautiful tree in the whole garden, because in her mind, she corrected it completely for the sake of giving. She really did. So it's like, on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, when you're in your mind projecting about how you're going to be a tzaddik in the next year, okay, she was like absolutely convinced she could do it. And in her mind, she could see herself eating from the tree and only receiving for the sake of giving, which is pure giving, and correcting for God this tree and bringing it into holiness. And she understood that this, in fact, was the destiny of the human being, because God said you should eat from all the trees of the garden. And so she understood it did include this tree. Okay. All right. And where the lie was when the snake said to her, you will not die. What was the lie? Because he led her to believe she had the capacity to do that. She did not. She did not have the capacity to correct the whole of all aspects of receiving in reality in one go. Okay, she didn't have the capacity to do that. But she told Adam, and they did it together. And the first aspect that they ate from the tree of knowledge, they ate in great holiness, with great intention. But unfortunately, once the desire, and remember, you're talking about the desire of all the desires of the world all coming in one go, once that was actually in their bodies, it was like overwhelming. And the second bite was for themselves alone. And that's when they fell, it was in the second bite. So this whole explanation is just, to me, amazing, because it teaches us that Eve had the best of intentions. She really did. But she fell down because, in fact, it was through disobeying God. But anyhow, that was the answer to your question, and I think it was a wonderful question. So I hope that helps. Please send the article to me also. Oh, yes, with pleasure. Hiya. And Rachel says, which sefer is this from? We're learning from a book called the Birkat Shalom of Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag. And it is volume 2, which is the Parashat Shavua. Okay? It's a 4-set thing, 5-set, 5-volume set, something like that. Okay, right, so we had the bit of digression going into the Garden of Eden, but it was very nice. So, Nimtza. Rabbi Gottlieb writes about this article, all right? Now, what he's pointed out in this article is that the order from the Garden of Eden, where man was commanded and not Eve, and the order in Matan Torah is the opposite. And he points out that the reason is because before man sinned in the Garden of Eden, there was no will to receive oneself alone in the world. Subsequently, all the children of man do have the will to receive themselves alone, which is the aspect of the tree of knowledge within us, okay? And therefore, the Torah, which comes to correct that sin, needs to work from the opposite, from the receiving from the imperfect to the perfect. Okay. נמצא רבנו אינו מתייחס לפרטי המדרש, אשר נותן טעמים שונים לכך שנשים הוקדמו. Our rabbi, that's Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, is not relating to the details of the Midrash, which gives different reasons why women were brought forward first. אלא שרבנו מפרט את הטעם באופן כללי, but he's explaining the reason why the women were commanded first of the Torah. Okay. Because it's the opposite of what happened in the Garden of Eden, that Adam Rishon was first commanded on the tree of knowledge, and only subsequently Eve. It's the opposite with Matan Torah. תשובתו, שבאדם הראשון הסדר הוא מהזך אל האב. With Adam הראשון, the order is from the pure to the impure. דהיינו, קודם נצטווה אדם עצמו שהוא זך. First of all, Adam was commanded, and he himself was pure. היינו כלים להשפעה. In other words, talking about vessels of giving. רק אחר כך נסתוותה חווה. Only subsequently, Eve, she kelim לקבלה, which is the vessels of receiving. היינו בחינה אב. מה שאין כן לפני מתן תורה, שכבר הייתה מעורבת בהם זוהמת אהבה עצמית. Now, before Matan Torah was involved in everybody, in all humanity already, the pollution of selfish will. Therefore, first of all, we have to deal with the will to receive, and that's represented by the women. I'm not saying that only the women had the will to receive. It's not true. Everybody had the will to receive, okay? But it's represented by the female side, okay? All right, which is the will to receive. and subsequently the men who represent the vessels of giving. Okay, now what this means is that order of our work also needs to go from below to above. First of all, we need to start from the world of Asiyah, okay, which is the aspect where our ability to do anything in holiness is very limited, okay, because our will to receive is most strong, all right? Shubchina Isha, okay, it's the aspect of receiving. Therefore, a person has at this level a very, very small amount of ability to overcome his will to receive, okay? He has to start small. Like we have to say, we have to start where we are, not where we fantasize we'd like to be, but where we are. We have to start from small steps. Not to expect more, too much. We have to start with baby steps. Start small, okay? What we have to do at the beginning is start to do Torah mitzvot, even if it's not for God's sakes, all right? It's called lo lishma. That's what we can do at this level, the level of Asiyah. That's where we begin, Torah shelo lishma, all right? And that's where we have to begin. When we're getting stronger, we're more able to control our will to receive for ourselves alone, more able to do aspects in holiness out of a pure and free will, unconditionally. That is Torah lishma, okay? Then we're more able to cope with a bigger challenge, all right? We're more able to overcome the will to receive in a more real, okay, aspect, and we're more able to give unconditionally, okay? So that's actually, we go from the lower to the higher, all right? So going in the opposite direction, all right? Now then, that was very good. You basically finished that article. Now there's another article here. I can find it. Yes. Which also looks at the same idea from a slightly different angle. And I thought I really liked it as well. And I thought we would learn it as well. Okay? Kotama lebeit Yaakov v'tagid libnei Yisrael. So say to the house of Yaakov and tell it to the children of Israel. Midrash Rabbah Shemot. It's from the same Midrash Rabbah. Okay. Kotoma lebeit Yaakov elu hanashim. Say it to the house of Yaakov. These are the women. Amale. Emor lahen rashei dvarim. Tell them headlines. She'enu cholot lishmoa, which are able to hear. V'tagid libnei Israel, and tell it to the children of Israel. Elu ha'anashim. These are the people. Amalo. He said to him, Emor lahem diktukei dvarim she'em yocholim lishmoa. Tell them headlines. No, sorry. I said it wrong. Let me say. Tell the headlines to the women which they can hear, and tell to the men the more precise details which they can hear. Dvar acher lama lanashim techila. It's basically saying the same thing that we looked at earlier. Okay, the same midrash. V'yesh lavin. We need to understand. Why does he say that women are more keen to do the mitzvot more than the men? Bet. They're speedier at doing them. Bet. Why do we have to tell the women first? Because they're more likely to take their children to the Torah. ואם יקדימו את הנשים, לא יסכימו להנהיג את בניהם לתורה. And if we would tell it to the men first, they wouldn't agree to take their kids to learn Torah. ג' האם כביכול מפחד מהנשים שלא תקלקלן את העולם, אם לא ייתן להם את הכבוד להקדים אותם לפני הנשים? Could it be from the fear that women will mess up the world again if we don't give them the honor of telling the Torah to them first? ד' איך שייך לומר שבבני הכבוד שעשה הקדוש ברוך הוא שנתן ציווי לאדם הראשון לפני חווה, עבר וקלקלה את העולם? זה דומה כאילו חווה התנקמה עבור זה. How can one say because God told Adam Arishon first and didn't tell Chava, she went and messed up the world? It's as if you're saying that Chava is taking vengeance because of this. In other words, it's very, very, very clear from these questions that the Midrash is not to be taken literally. Okay, it cannot possibly mean that. יכולים לפרש על זה, את זה על דרך עבודה. The way to explain this particular Midrash, which we looked at earlier in the previous article, okay, is through how we do our work. שעניין איש ואישה נוהג באדם אחד, because the issue of the man and the woman is actually being conducted in one person. שבזמן שאדם עושה מעשים על מנת לקבל ולמלות את חיסונו, הנוקביות שלו, אז האדם נקרא בשם אישה. Because when a person is doing actions which are basically for his will to receive, and he's filling up his own lack, what is he doing? He's filling up his nukviot shelo. He's filling up his feminine aspect. As Adam nikra b'shem isha. Then the man is actually called by the name of a woman. ובזה שאדם עושה מעשים על מנת להשפיע, אזי נקרא בשם איש. Only when a person is doing actions for the sake of giving unconditionally, then he's called a man. Okay, so the definition of woman and man is not gender. Okay, it's what characteristic a person is using in his life at that moment. Is he acting like the man in the sense of giving, or is he acting like the woman in the sense of receiving? It really doesn't have anything to do with what gender you are. Oh, here Rabbi Gottlieb gives a nice twist here. Ke'ish u'gever morel hitgabrut. Because the word gever, man, teaches that he's talking about hitgabrut, that he's able to overcome his will to receive, and he's able to walk in the way of giving. Very nice. Okay? וזה ידוע שכל האדם אינו יותר מרצון לקבל, and it's known that each person has basically his main aspect of the person is his will to receive. וסדר התחלת עבודה מתחילים עם רצון לקבל. And the way each one of us has to begin our service to God, we need to begin with dealing with our will to receive. So we start off actually using our will to receive, so in doing the mitzvot. שזהו נקרא שלא לשמה. That we always have to start doing the mitzvot, first of all, not for its own sake. Why? Because we cannot help it, but except start using our will to receive. That's what we know, that's what our abilities are, that's what we have to start off with. So that's receiving, we have to start using that. So we do our mitzvot also with our own desires to receive mixed in. And then gradually, through practice, okay, and through a lot of asking God to help us, by im lishma, then we come to for its own sake, serving God for its own sake. לכן הסדר הוא, כה תאמר לבית יעקב, thus you should say to the house of Jacob, אלו הנשים, these are the women. אמור להם ראשי הדברים, tell them the main headlines. What is the main things? הנו התחלת עבודה, the beginning of the work, okay? So we have to start off with what the mitzvot actually are. How do we do them? How do we carry them out? What we actually have to do. When he's talking about the nashim, he's not talking about the women. He's talking about the state in which we all begin, the aspect of receiving. For that aspect, he says you've got to start off with just telling people what the mitzvot are and not worrying people too much about whether it's for themselves or whether it's not for themselves. We all have to start off there. אסר לו לומר שצריך לעבוד לשמה. כי אין אדם מסוגל להתחיל בלשמה. In fact, it was forbidden to tell a person who's just beginning that one needs to work for the sake of giving, because a person's not able to begin for the sake of giving. Now, why is it forbidden at that point to tell somebody that it's for the sake of giving? Because what actually happens is that if a person feels that he can't do anything for the sake of giving, he tends to stop altogether. I remember when I first learned the work of Rabbi Ashlag, I was learning with a student of Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, and he first taught me this idea of lishma, working for the sake of giving. And I found myself completely paralyzed for the next few months. I couldn't do anything because I was aware that the Torah mitzvot I was doing was not pure. It was for my own sake. And I couldn't get to lishma, so I basically stopped. Okay, and that is a problem. All right, you cannot go from one bank of the river to the other bank of the river in one hop. All right, if you're talking about a wide and deep river, and getting from one side of the bank to the other is basically it's like crossing a very, very wide and deep river, and you can't do it in one go. You've got to have stepping stones, all right, or some sort of bridge to help you get across, and you've got to start somewhere. So when a person begins his work in Torah mitzvot, you don't tell him, oh, you've got to do it only for the sake of giving, because if you tell him that, he'll just stop. He won't be able to do it, all right? Okay, you can't begin there, all right? So it's something that you begin to learn gradually. When a person begins to understand about giving and receiving, eventually asks the questions for himself, and he says, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing now? Am I giving or am I receiving? And he begins to ask the questions, and he begins to wonder about what his own motives are, and then you can teach him, and then you can teach the person and say, okay, what we've started off now with, which is Torah lo lishma, now you have to begin to think about the intention, all right? So in fact, in Judaism, we begin first of all with the action, and get that right, and only then you deal with the intention, even though the intention is actually higher, okay? And it is a crucial thing. Nevertheless, you've got to start with the action, all right? I think it's a bit different than other systems. In Judaism, you start with the outer action. But what I like to think about it is like this. If you have a baby who's hungry, okay, and wants its bottle, all right, it doesn't matter what the mother's intention is. It doesn't matter that she can be sitting there thinking, oh, I really, really love this baby. I really love this baby. What she has to do is get up and feed the baby, okay? That's what she needs to do. And the baby won't feel much love without the action. First, you've got to have the action. And then when the mother is feeding the baby, then she can think to herself, oh, I really love the baby. Okay, do you see what I mean? You've got to have the action first and then put the intention, all right? So, first of all, we have to have the action. You've got to first deal with the nikviut, with the receiving aspect. Only once you've got that under, got the mitzvot actually going, then you can come to work lavod lishma. then you can start to move into doing the same actions for the sake of giving, for its own sake. Hanu lashpia. Then you can say to them the niceties, the subtleties, the nuances, okay, of how to do it more precisely, of how to serve God for the sake of giving, okay? Only they're able to hear. Because they're able to hear for the sake of giving. And therefore they need to be precise about everything that will be only for the sake of giving, for its own sake. And that's why for the men, they're told these more specific aspects. Remember, it's not really men and women, it's all in one person. So first we deal with our receiving side, okay, and then we're able to deal and come towards our giving side. Now then, now, is there anything else that Rabbi Gottlieb said here? Nope. Right, we said all that. Dvacher. Another explanation. Oh yeah, we just got time. Lama lenashim tchila. Why the women first? Because they are speedy to do the mitzvot. Hainu b'shelo lishma. Okay, we find it much easier to do the mitzvot when they are not for its own sake. Shekavanat adam lekabel tmura chelef avodato. As I guf mezarezet adam. Because when we got our own motives mixed in, we want to receive a reward for our work. That's what it means, okay? And then when we know we're going to receive a reward for our work, we want to receive a reward for our work, then aguf mezarezet adam. Then our own body doesn't stop us. On the contrary, it urges us on. We've got enthusiasm. It's easy, okay? Masha ein kein amanat lashpia. But when we're trying to do something which is completely for the sake of giving, the body does not agree that that a person should work. It certainly doesn't add any enthusiasm. Okay, all the time it tends to fight us. Therefore, when a person begins his work, even though it's for the sake of receiving, he can get himself accustomed to be, to do it with enthusiasm, to work well. And then he can retain that habit when he wants to start to work for the sake of giving. Because he already got the habit of doing the mitzvot promptly, of doing them well, of doing them efficiently. From the time when he was doing it not for its own sake, he can now carry that habit over and do it for its own sake. Okay, that's why it's good to begin that way. Because they bring their children to the Torah. Father and son is cause and effect. That's what it means in Kabbalah. Father and son means cause and effect. זאת אומרת, אם יש מקודם סיבה של קבלה, אז הסיבה הזו גורמת שיוצא לעשות עוד מעשים בתורה מצוות. If the first reason for doing Torah mitzvot, because he thought he was going to get a reward, then that is a reason which is going to make him want to do even more deeds in Torah mitzvot, because then he gets more reward. When we're dealing with the aspect of lishma, for its own sake, for only for pure giving, then the body doesn't want to add any energy to that, because the body doesn't understand that at all. On the contrary, each time we've got to overcome the inertia of the body yet again. Whereas when we're working, which is not for its own sake, it gives the body's very happy to join in, and it gives extra energy. So by the fact that a person gets habituated to do the work during the time of preparation, which is lo lishma, then when things get harder, okay, and our body starts to oppose, we've got the vessels ready from our time of immaturity. Sorry, and what happened there? Yes, and when there was the creation of the world, first of all was commanded Adam, okay, first man. While Pisha Katuv, now he goes back into the explanation that we looked at earlier. It's written in the Holy Zohar that the Adam HaRishon did not have anything from this world. When he started off, he didn't have any real aspect of receiving. He was created only from the first 9 sfirot. And he takes us to that introduction, which Bezrat Hashem I'll send you. From his aspect, from the beginning aspect, okay, how he began, from his root, he already had vessels of giving, and he was already acting from the aspect of for its own sake. But he never got the habits required, okay, because he never had the ability to prepare his vessels in the way that we do from the time of not for its own sake. Okay, therefore, only in when you prepare them first, like working from lo lishma to lishma, can you bring the vessels of receiving that they will be only for receiving for the sake of giving. You can only do it from bottom up, from going from below to above. לכן על ידי התקללותו מבחינת רצון לקבל, נקרא בחינת אישה, בחינת חווה, עבר וכרכרה העולם. So when he received the aspects of receiving, he didn't know how to handle it, okay? And that aspect of receiving, therefore, spoiled the world. לטעם שהייתה חסרה לה הכשרה שלה שלא לשמה, על בחינת הרצון לקבל. Because Adam and Eve, when they ate from the tree of knowledge, had no proper preparation. They had no getting used to dealing with their vessels of receiving. They just didn't know how to handle them, and it was all too much. Whereas because we start off with our vessels of receiving, we learn gradually by preparing, by going from lo lishma to lishma. We have a time of preparation, time of getting ready, a time of learning how to deal with our aspects of receiving, and then bringing them to the aspects of giving gradually, okay? מטעם, כמו שאומר הרמב"ם, שעניין לשמה אסור לגלות בפעם אחת, אלא לאט לאט. And this is why the Rambam says, when he's teaching about this, he says you mustn't reveal the issue of Torah lishma, straight away to people, but only very gradually, because you can't change things we can't change our inbuilt nature, which is to receive, in one go. You try to do it, you collapse, okay? You've got to do it gradually, step by step, bit by bit, okay? Imagine this big river, you've got to have some stepping stones in the middle. You can't do it in one go, all right? לכן, כשגילת הלשמה אצל האישה, תקף עבר וכרכרת עולם. And that was why, when they tried to do receiving for the sake of giving straight away, okay, the moment they received these vessels, it was far too much, okay, and they fell down. לכן צריכים להקדים את האישה, היינו הנשים. So therefore, we need first of all to deal with our vessels of receiving and to work with them gradually, okay, because that is our basic makeup, which is our will to receive, and gradually introduce them to Torah and mitzvot, okay? And then once we've got the Torah mitzvot, then we can start working on getting, moving from shelo lishma to lishma, from its, not for its own sake, to its own sake. Okay, great. That was it. Oh, we finished just bang on time. There you go. Stop the share. All right. Did you guys enjoy that?
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Very good. Lovely. Okay,
Thank you so much. It's
You're
good.
welcome.
Fantastic.
Yay. Lovely.
I'm a great one to jump right across the river in one shot.
Yeah, well, I watched this National Geographic film once, and I saw this herd of elephants. It's very, very dramatic for me. I watched this. I thought, and they were trying to cross this huge river. Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, it was far too deep for the little elephants, and was pretty deep for the mothers as well. The fathers, I think, could sort of wade across, and put their trunks in the air, and they were okay. But it was a very, very deep, fast-flowing river, and they had to get across to, get more food on the other side or something. And I thought about this. It really struck me that, in a way, that's so much like what we're trying to do, trying to cross the river of our will to receive ourselves alone and get to the side of the will to give.
Yes.
And this sort of herd of elephants, and they're sort of like the big grand, big male elephants went first, I guess, to find the best way, and the mothers came with the children, and of course the children, I mean the baby elephants, they were just sort of like paddling along and trying to keep their trunk up above the water, whatever.
Within elephant flocks, they got matriarchs.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's amazing.
They're very strong matriarchal society elephants.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was really amazing, and they got the herd across the river.
Wow.
Yeah, and it kind of like this picture stayed in my mind as, in a way, what we're trying to do, take our wills to receive for ourselves alone and bring them to the will to give. And we can't do it in one go. We've got to get across this river. All right. So I think about that, and I think about, we need stepping stones, or we need a bridge, or we need, something in the middle to do it. Because we don't have the capacity to get from one side to the other side, in one go. If you try to do that, you just fall in, huh?
I like that, because I think in pictures, so I can see myself like being helped across by elephants, so to speak. But
Yes.
it does help me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else got some comments or anything? All right then. All right. We'll have a lovely, lovely Shabbat.
Thank you.
Okay.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you,
Shalom.
Yazida.
Very welcome. Okay. All right. Take care then.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Oh, hi, Lauren. Hi.
Bye.
How's your mum? Oh, wait a minute. Let me just switch off the recording. Stop recording. Yes.